welcome back to Pomnando. Welcome to another new episode of the show Pomnando. Today, we're deep diving into Melbourne and what is going on with such a strong list on paper. Why are the results not there? A team that has only won 3 times in the last 10, then wins coming against the Eagles, Essendon, and Gold Coast in what was a shock turnaround in a team that had already put the cue in the rack. Why is the heat not on Goodwin more? And why are Melbourne not performing? Let's run the intro, get straight into it. Melbourne are a fascinating team for me to watch. When you have an engine room that has Max Gawn, Clayton Oliver, and Christian Petrarca, you instantly think top 8 as a bare minimum in a league where the midfield battle is invariably the battle that wins the core game. It is fascinating to see how Melbourne are just kind of a higgledy-piggledy, kind of a clinging on side. Now, we know a couple of years ago, Goodwin was quite open about trying to transition from a very physical game plan to being a bit more free-flowing from the back half of the ground. But it really does see, when you watch Melbourne play, particularly from their flag, they haven't actually evolved into the modern game. It is literally a case of try and create repeat entries, be really grindy, be really tough, and hopefully create repeat stoppages inside 50 that will entail goals. It's really fascinating when you look at Melbourne under the last 10 games. They are the #1 side for pressure acts differential, but that doesn't curtail to anywhere else. When you look at how they work from that avenue, you would say, okay, they put in a lot of pressure, they're working really hard. This should translate to anywhere else. But centre bounce, their bottom 6 differential. When you look at forward half entries particularly, they're bang mid-table. When you look at the defensive half, an area in which they said they would improve, they are just above North Melbourne. When you look at turnover, the most important one, only Essendon, North, Richmond and Eagles are worse. And the one that I think really is a concern, it's very similar to Carlton. They are bang mid-table, just a point above their opposition from there. And the big thing is when you watch Melbourne play, it really is obvious when you watch them. They are a team that genuinely seems to take an age to get the ball forward, but also an age to do anything with it. And they really do dine out as a football club on the gifts that Petrarca, Oliver, and big lad Max Gawn make. When I watch them play football, it's hard work, it's laborious, it isn't free-flowing. It's very like watching paint dry. You can see that when all the other teams have curtailed to a more exciting system, they are still very much bang the ball forward, get numbers around it, make it hard, make it tough, and hopefully we will grind some results out of it. And that's partly down to Goodwin. You also look at their recruitment over the last 3 or 4 years, potentially the worst in the AFL. It feels like your tight Uncle Dave, you know, who will just do little plaster fixes around his house when it would actually be long-term cheaper to pay a plumber to fix them piping. He's just using plumber's tape and a little bit of ingenuity. You look at the players they've brought in, Josh Shaky, Ben Brown, stopgaps in the forward line when they've been crying out for a forward. Players like Tim Membry were up on offer last year to really help a young Van Ruin out. When you look at how they've done it, they are literally dining out on Tosh at times when you look at it. And it is really disappointing because when you look at the talent available, that flag win was remarkable, but you would expect them to go up a gear. And Melbourne go into this year as the 4th oldest list. The 4th oldest list. And that is fascinating that we are still seeing this non-development. When you look at the teams older than Melbourne, the Doggies, they have got a very similar issue to Melbourne in terms of they've got all their eggs in one line of the basket. Strong midfield, their forward line is really young and up and coming. When you look at Melbourne, their back line is old. It's very good. Their midfield is on the older side of the norm. Very good. And Collingwood, though, although maybe slightly older, obviously, playing a modern-day brand of football that is really hard to contain and really, really tough to break down. Melbourne really are like the schoolboy bullies, the way they've played the last couple of years. We're going to beat you up, and if we don't beat you up and you happen to have a big brother that can throw a right hook, we're cooked. And then that leads me on to the off-field with Melbourne. Off-field Melbourne, it feels like they are one statement away from completely imploding. The way they handled the Joel Smith incident, the way they handled the Christian Petrarca incident, that hours and hours of media coverage on Clayton Oliver's problems, the leak of Pickett wanted to go back to Fremantle, and then now the Max Gawn thing. It feels like Goodwin is now AI. Like, this job has curtailed him. I didn't think he had a big personality at the start, but he did at least look human. Now it's like he's singing from the hymn book of vanilla and just telling us what we want to hear. Not much accountability. It feels like the goalposts change all the time with Goodwin. 1 minute it's about stoppage in contests. 1 minute it's about slingshot off the back half. It's a real fascinating thing because even the players, when you look at the players, and this is one of the intrinsic things I look at the players, it's them little things. When you do them 1%ers, is there a ruffle of the hair? Is there a well done? When you look at Melbourne play, them players look like they're under the spotlight. They're feeling the heat. And I look at Melbourne and I go, okay, they don't have a strong key forward in the terms of a guy that's going to lead the line, 60 goals. But then when I look at like teams like Fremantle, that I think, although on field sometimes it's a little bit shoddy, they definitely run well off field. You look at the development of Josh Tracy, Van Ruin should be in that category, in my opinion, ASAP Rocky. And what does he need? He needs clear guidance, he needs quick ball, he needs it to be fun and exciting. This slow, arborous way, and the way that Goodwin handles this, it always feels like you've caught your kid stealing the last chocolate. He's got chocolate on his face, and he's telling you the dog. Goodwin is fascinating for me at spin. There's not much accountability, and it feels like he ruffles the players of the wrong types of players as well. Feels like it's all about protecting Goodwin and diverting the look that maybe he isn't very good, and maybe that was a flash in the pan. Because when you look at Melbourne, they're probably the last side to win the flag, playing almost an archaic brand of football. And they've been quite bullish on these plans to go from half-back, to be more bold, to be more ambitious. And Goodwin doesn't fill me with faith. His press conferences really do feel like he's a bumbling idiot at times. That's me being nice. It really does feel like he is one question away from the wheels falling off. And when you look at this team, they've got some superstars in it. Pickett, arguably one of the best forwards in the competition. Bailey Fritsch, incredibly underrated. Max Gawn, Petrarca, Oliver speaks for themselves. Stephen May, Jake Lever speaks for itself. Ed Langdon, Jack Viney, these guys are A-grade role players at their very worst. And it's got a good young core as well. When you look at its young core and the players that are coming through, Caleb Windsor, modern-day halfback. Judd McVeigh, very, very strong in the clutches. They've got these youth coming through, and then they've got a real good mid-core. You've got Trent Rivers, Pickett, we've talked about, Sparrows, Industrious. It feels like this is now or never for Melbourne. Melbourne are really a team that I feel like their results based on their list aren't good enough. And they've got such an easy fixture list this year. And it feels like Melbourne are going to fall into the trap where they're probably going to break even. They're probably going to win 10 games this year, not 11 games. Finish around the 8 because of the sheer makeup of the team. But it feels like, does anyone in that boardroom at Melbourne have any respect for themselves? Because this should be a lot better. For me, when you are top 6, age bracket-wise and experience, I'm looking at your top 4, or you're openly going for a rebuild. And Melbourne haven't indicated that they are going for a rebuild at all. They have indicated that the time is now, everything is settled. The way that they have recruited as well in recent years suggests that they are more than happy with this list. I am sorely disappointed because what I saw against North Melbourne was the benchmark of how you beat Melbourne. It was try and break even, you may lose around the contest, but as soon as you spread, as soon as you get it wide, as soon as you make these players run and spread, the fight isn't there, the pride isn't there. And then when you hear what the coach says at the end, you can see that this is a club that seems to have very little self-respect for its members and results, but more respect for protecting its identity, more respect for keeping the deflection, the Fugazi going. Melbourne, for me, are one of the most disappointing teams to ever win the flag. Them and the Dogs, what they've done after that, and the list has got infinitely better, says everything. Even when you look at the off-field things they do, they lose some top line coaches. They replace them with babies, untested, untried. It's a real fascinating job because it feels like Melbourne's backroom is always done on the cheap, on the fly. We could get a plumber, let's get a handyman, he's cheaper. We could cut the grass by buying a lawnmower ourselves. It's all right, we've got some real good scissors. We'll just spend a couple of hours scissoring it. It's a real fascinating case. And for me, Melbourne have to be under the spotlight because the prime years of the lives are coming up. You've got players like Max Gawn who'll be 34 next season. 34 for Stephen May. Jack Viney will be 32. You've got some real senior players, but Petrarca will be 30. Oliver will be 28. They're coming into their prime years. And while you've got them, you've got two things. You've got trade collateral should you want to go for a rebuild, rejuvenate the list, or you're getting the best years of their lives. This is the time that you bring some young top 5 pick in to work around them. Langford, they've done that. An absolute terrific footballer who Langford will be a long-term prospect. It really fascinates me the way that they're running their football club because I think Melbourne fans should be disappointed. Even though I don't agree with getting over the race per se, I understand why they are. So this week's Pomnando is Melbourne. What are you doing? Make a decision because at the minute, all their pre-season noise is the same cycle. We're going to do better. In season, they don't. There's an excuse. There's an excuse. It's smoke and mirrors. Don't look at what the boardroom's doing. I feel that that's a club in trouble, and I really feel for Melbourne because I think we should be talking about them as a top 4, top 6 side. And when we look at that GWS game, as much as we praise them, it was them clinging on again. They didn't look like winning it, but they looked like they weren't going to get beat. And in this league, it's about dominating. It's about making pay as you get the chance. That's the Pomnado this week. Melbourne Demons, have I been a bit too harsh on your team? I really do think you deserve better. I really look at that list and think, okay, it is lacking a true, brilliant key toe. But Van Ruin ain't a mug. Surely it's not that hard to go out there in the trade period and get him the support and the established talent he needs to protect these players. See you soon. Pom out.